Hi everybody, welcome to the Manifold channel. Today we're going to continue on in our Manifold tutorial. We're going to do the second part of the tutorial, continuing on from where we left before. And we're going to add data and create a map. Specifically, we're going to recreate this map that you see in front of us right now. And that's the Venice example that we used in the first part of the tutorial. Let's start by cleaning up the map a bit. We're working with Manifold Release 9, and everything that you see here works exactly the same way in Manifold Viewer, so you can use the same tutorial for Manifold Viewer as well. Let's clean up the old project, and what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of some of these layers because we're going to duplicate them. So off screen, I'm going to, well actually let's minimize this map. I'm going to Alt-click to make that map a little bit smaller. And so now you can see where I'm working with the context menu. Right-click on the OSM Structures tab, delete from map. Let's delete the Wiki Landmarks layer. We'll delete the Labels layer, and let's delete the Ground Surface layer. Actually, let's delete this layer here, which is turned off, but we're going to delete that as well. We'll delete it from the map. We haven't actually deleted these from the project. You can see they're all still here in the project. We've just deleted them from the map. So let's delete some of them from the project as well. And to delete a drawing, you delete both the drawing and the table. I've Control-clicked OSM Structures and OSM Structures table. Then I click the delete button. Yep. Let's do a bunch more rapidly like that. And let's keep these. Let's rename these Wiki Landmarks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click and choose Rename Related. So when I rename this to be Old Wiki Landmarks, click Return, it automatically renames all the related components as well. That's a very, very handy thing. And what I'll do is I'll create a new folder here. And let's try to get that where we can see it. Actually, let's unclick this. Okay, so now I can right-click and choose Create New Folder, and I'll create a folder called Old. And let's get rid of all these locations that we have left over from the old work as well. Let's create a folder called New Folder called Locations. And now let's clean up the project. What I'm going to do is I'm going to Control-click that, Control-click, 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 and then I'll drag and drop all these locations into the Locations folder, so you can see that cleans them up there. And now let's take these old components here from the old Wiki Landmarks, and we'll drag and drop those into old as well. So you can see that there. So that's nice and clean. I'll Shift-click to dock the project pane again, and I'll move it there to that position. All right, so what are we going to do now? Let's start by importing some shapefiles. Everybody loves to work with shapefiles. It's a very old format, but still. It's alive and kicking. We'll choose File, Import. And here in the in this import dialog, let's double-click into shapefiles. And you can see shapefiles have all these different bits and pieces to them. I can clean that up with the display by choosing here SHP. Okay, Manifold knows so many formats, you might have to scroll a bit. And that'll just show just the SHPs. So let's do the structures, Control-click that, Wiki Landmarks, Control-click that. And as you can see, we can import more than one shapefile at a time. Click Import, and they both appear. We've just imported them into the drawing, into the project rather. And I can drag and drop these. Let's drag and drop OSM Structures into the map. It's georeferenced because that shapefile had a correct PRG projection sidecar file attached to it. And let's drag and drop Wiki Landmarks into the map. And as you drag and drop things, they appear at above whatever the current layer was. So for example, we had clicked OSM Structures and we dragged and dropped Wiki Landmarks. It appeared just above that. Let's turn this off. As you can see with the default gray formatting, it's not so easy to see the Wiki Landmarks. So let's format that using Style, Contents, Pane. Click on that, and then here I'll choose Style. And let's make that a bright green color for the fill color. And if I expand that to say 10, that makes nice big dots. But let's choose a more interesting symbology than that, so I can go to my symbology button here for points, and I can choose let's undock this so we can see it. Part of the struggle with doing YouTube videos, by the way, is that we're using a very small viewport here. In real life, you're going to use a full screen of your monitor, and probably use 2 or 3 monitors as well, because the more monitors you use and the more real estate that you use with GIS, the more effectively you can work. But here we're constrained to this very small viewport, so I'm going to be docking and undocking panes a lot, just so I can get the various context menus into view for the YouTube video. In real life, those are in view automatically. Here, let's choose more, and in the main style dialog, let's choose this guy right here. That's a pretty good look. Click OK, and you can see it does a preview of what it's going to show. And we don't have to click Update Style because anything that we change here automatically updates the style from these buttons. Let's dock that pane again, and let's do the OSM structures. Let's make those pretty. And what I'll do is I'll do a kind of a trick here, because we can style these in different ways. So for example, we can just choose a color like that and style them. If I want to copy something that was already styled, that was a look that we see in a different map, we can do something like this. Here's an image that I did as a screenshot. I'm going to Control-click to open it, click View, Zoom to Native, and what I did is I did a screenshot of an Esri tutorial. And what that did is that showed me the colors that Esri uses for their landmarks and canals and structures. And if I like, I can zoom into this. Let me undock this to kind of make it a small window here, so where I can keep the colors that I want in view. And now for the I'll undock the map here too, so I can keep both of these in view at the same time. And now for the OSM structures, I'm going to click on the Style pane, and let's click on the map here. And for the OSM structures, I'm going to click on the Style pane, and what I can do is I can choose here. There's a button called More. Excuse me. There's a button here called Color Picker. When I choose the Color Picker, that creates this little eyedropper type thing, and I can click on anything that I see on any of my monitors. So if I want to pick this color right there, I can choose it. And what I've just done is I've chosen the background color to be exactly the same as what Esri used. And I can also use that for the fill color when I choose the color picker. Let's choose this color gray, which is what Esri used. And that's the effect that Esri worked with. Let's get rid of this image, and let's dock the map so we have a full screen map again. And here I'm going to use what to me is kind of an ugly effect, is a solid resizable border, and that allows me to resize the border here just by picking numbers here. That's a special effect there. So let's make a border size of 0.5 points, and that creates that look right there. That's what Esri uses for their example drawing. They use exactly that color and exactly that background color. Now suppose I don't want to use that exactly that background color. Suppose I want to do a thematic format based on on a field. Well, let's use the height field. And what I'll do is I'll take 10 breaks, make 10 breaks, and what I will use is, let's make equal counts. So in each of the breaks, there'll be the same count, and it automatically tallies. And then what I'll do here is I'll apply palette, and off screen, okay, let's undock this again so we can see more of what we're doing. And off screen, there'll be the, I'll use the color brewer palette for, let's say, spectral. For some reason, that's become my favorite palette, my go-to palette. And there we go. That's the color palette. And here I will, let's dock this again. Let's make this black. So I've now created areas which are, or as you'd call them in Esri-land, polygons, which are colored using this thematic format for the fill color, in which you use black as the border color. I can change the size of the border if I want to whatever size I want by altering this value right there. That makes for really ugly and big ones. That makes kind of thick ones. I like to use about a half point color, which makes for nice thin borders. So we have therefore created, let's zoom to our location, we've pretty much recreated the OSM structures and the wiki landmarks that we've done, that we created before. If I want, I can create labels based on wiki landmarks. Let's create labels, new labels, and I'm going to use the name field and create a label. And there's my labels, and let's drag and drop the labels into over top of the landmarks. By default, it positions the label in that kind of a simplistic black font right over top of the point. And like we can style those. Let's style those by using it's a white banner. That's kind of ugly. We can do better than that. Let's go back to a basic look like that, and let's use the full style dialog to add a halo, and we'll add a halo in white color, and we'll add a halo padding of about 2, and we will move that. Let's offset it by about 3 points, so that'll generate an offset about like that. Actually, I think what we used is we used a padding of about 1, and we used a 9-point font, And the font that I used is going to be a, let's use Nunito Sans. Nunito Sans is my go-to font. It's one of the Google fonts. And we'll use Nunito Sans semi-bold, which seems to result in a nice effect. And let's do a padding of, let's use a padding of 1.5. 1.5. You can see there's a lot of tinker time to doing labels. And that's pretty much a duplication of what we did in the prior map. We have points that show our landmarks. We've taken from the name field for those landmarks the labels, and we've added the labels to the map. So far we've done all that is cool, and let's create some more things. We've seen how to import data into the map. Let's see how we can link data into the map. And I'm going to get rid of some of these things right here, like Google satellites. Satellites I don't need. So let's choose File, Link. And what we're going to do is we'll link a shapefile. We're going to link this Esri canals shapefile, and I'm going to click Link. And what that does is that creates a data source. And when I drag and drop the canals drawing from that data source into the map, and let's put the canals right here, just above the OSM structures. As you can see, let me right-click and zoom to scroll in a bit. Those black lines are the canals. Let's format them using the lines right there at about using the same kind of coloring that Esri uses, and we'll make those lines about 1.5 point thick to match with the Esri look. The layer that we've called canals isn't actually in the project. It's coming in from this data source. Anytime you see a little cylinder like this, like a database cylinder, that means it's an external data source. So the data for canals is staying in that shapefiles, and Manifold is pulling it in on the fly to render those canals for us. You might think, well, okay, that's kind of cool, and why would I always do that? And the reason you might not always want to do that is that shapefiles are a very slow format. They're not remotely as fast as importing something directly into the map. The part of the project that you see down here is a map project, and that's actually stored in the .map file, which is a database file. Manifold, as you know, is a database. So anything that's in here is a native Manifold format. For example, these OSM structures, that means they're really, really fast. Anything that's up here, seen with the database cylinder, that's coming in from an external data source. For example, the Bing Street Maps layer that we're bringing in the background, that we're using as a background. The Bing Street Maps layer is coming in as tiles for this Bing Street Map image. It's coming in from Microsoft servers. The canals layer is coming in from this canals data source, which is the shapefile. You can see where we can hover the mouse over that to see where that's coming from. And all that is still resident as shapefile. Like I say, shapefiles are old. Shapefiles also have limitations as to the sort of data that they can contain to them. So almost always it's better to actually import data into the Manifold project. Now, one advantage of having these things stored in a shapefile, of course, is that if that shapefile changes, this will automatically change. So that's when it makes sense to use a link, when you're linking from data that automatically changes. Let's see a different way that we can add canals. Let's delete the data source, and so I'm going to delete the canals layer from here, delete from map, and here I'm going to delete the data source. So that's gone. So now we no longer have that data source. What I will do is I will open another Manifold session. I'm going to right-click on the taskbar where there's a little Manifold logo, and I'm going to choose Manifold System Release 9, and that launches another Manifold session, which I'm going to make a little bit smaller here, and so I can bring it into view. And let's choose File, Open. And what I will do is I will open one of the other projects that I saved. Here's one's called Esri Venice Map. And these are all the various Esri layers that I imported from the various shapefiles that Esri provides. Esri thoughtfully provides a lot of their tutorials under a Creative Commons attribution, so you can actually use them however you like, and that's why we're using them here. And what I can do here is I can click and then control-click the canals in the canals table. That's the canals drawing from this project. And here I can click Copy. And then right here, you can see this, the Paste button has lit up. We've copied that from the clipboard from the other project, and now let's paste it into this project. And what we've done is we've made a copy from the Esri Venice project right here, and we've copied the data from there. We've just pasted it into our project here. So now if we like to do, we can drag and drop that here. Those are already formatted because when you copy a Manifold component from another project, it comes in with all the Manifold data and all the properties and style and all that other stuff. So that's a very convenient thing to do. That's that's a pretty cool way of copying and pasting data. Let's get rid of this canals. Delete from map, and here I'm going to delete this here as well. And let's see yet another way to bring data into map. So far we've looked at how to import a shapefile, we've looked at how to create a data source, and now let's and we've looked at how to open a different manifold session, copy and paste from that. Let's choose a file link, and let's link that Esri Venice project as into the map. And you can see this is like 400 megabytes. That's because that has some pretty big images to it. Oops, the file's already in use, and so what I got to do is I got to let's close this session here where we have it in open, exit application. All right, and so now I can link it, and I link Esri Venice into the map. You can only have a linked map file open in one manifold session at a time. And when I open this, you can see that's the entire contents of what was in that prior map. And if I like the project, what I could do is I can drag and drop components from this from this linked project into the map. Now, everything that's inside this Esri Venice little data source here, where you see the database cylinder, all that is in a different manifold project. Now, the cool thing about manifold projects is that you can drag stuff in from them, and you can link them into a project, and you can link them. For example, this Esri Venice project could have another project linked into it, and so forth and so on, and you can nest those 100 deep. And when you use elements from those components from these nested data sources, they can appear and work here with full manifold performance, because this is a full database, the Esri Venice database. It's a manifold database. It's a full featured, fully parallel deal. And when you nest it like this, what we bring from canals from Esri Venice, it's just as fast as if it was local. In fact, we can take really huge images like this Venice ground surface, drag and drop it into the map. And let's turn off the OSM structures. And you can see that surface, which is came in originally from an over 100 megabyte TIFF. So, fully expanded, this thing is probably, 200 megabytes worth of data, that detailed terrain elevation surface. And it's fully featured to it. It's going to run just as fast. It can be 100 gigabytes in size, and it'll pan and zoom, even though it's coming into our current project, the OSM Venice Add Data project, from a nested manifold project. It'll be just as if it was local. It's that fast. So what a lot of people do is they use manifold projects as kind of a archival storage, and that's just a great way to keep archival storage. So, for example, let's file link another manifold project. Here's everybody's favorite collection of ArcGIS REST servers, and click link, and it appears there. When I click that open, that's a different project. So, and that includes, for example, favorites like the Canvas World Dark Gray Base image server layer. So I can click and drag that into the map, and there's the as famous Esri Canvas World Dark Gray Base that Esri loves to use in their examples, and I can understand why, because it's a cool look. It's that nice dark background look, and it fills in right there. It's filling in tiles because it's pulling in tiles from the ArcGIS REST server, and that ArcGIS REST server is, for all I know, somewhere on the other planet, on this side of the planet. I have no idea where Esri actually has their servers, but you can see you can use any of these servers. For example, here's the Delorme World Base Map server. Let's drag and drop that into the map, and zoom out a bit. That one's pretty slow for some reason. I don't know why, but there you go. You can see that's the look from the Delorme server. Let's get rid of that. I don't particularly like that one. Let's use what's a good one? Esri National Geographic map. There we go. Let's add that to the map. Let's see how. That map data not yet available. Not at this resolution. You got to zoom out some more. There you go. And that's the National Geographic server. Let's move it above the canvas layer. So it's pretty cool is that you can use all these different servers just by linking in the Esri ArcGIS REST servers layer. Let's get rid of the National Geographic server. I'm going to delete that from the map. And let's get rid of this one from the map. I'm going to delete the canvas from the map. Canvas server from the map. If I like, I can, let's reduce some of these, make them a little bit smaller, close them up. If I like, I can do something like this. I can click on the Canvas World Dark Gray Base from within the ArcGIS REST servers, click copy, and then down here in the main part of the map, I'm going to click to move the focus down here in the local part of my project, and then click paste. And Canvas World Dark Gray Base appears within my project as a data source. It's no longer, that one is no longer coming in from here from the ArcGIS REST servers. And in fact, what I can do is I can delete the ArcGIS REST servers data source. And here's my Canvas World Dark Gray Base server that I copied and pasted from that other Manifold project. So that's another way of getting data in from a Manifold project. You link the Manifold project in, and then you can copy and paste things like database connections or data source connections, and that's really cool because, for example, that that project we linked in might not be a collection of Esri ArcGIS REST servers. It could be, say, a collection of connections to our corporate databases. We could have a connection to a PostGIS. We could have a Postgres. Could have a connection to Oracle, to SQL Server, to whatever, and then we can copy and paste those as well. So that's yet another way of getting data into the map. I'm going to leave this Canvas World Dark Gray Base thing here. And I'm going to leave this Esri connection. Doesn't no harm if we have that in place. I'm going to get rid of the canals because I'll be bringing in canals from a different data source. Let us now import, and this one here, the ground surface. Let's delete that from the map as well. Let us now import a TIFF file. What we've seen so far is how to import various things. Let's import from a TIFF file, and what we're going to do is we're going to import that terrain elevation surface that we used for the ground surface of Venice. And to do that, we'll click File, Import, and here's the TIFF. It's a 132 megabyte TIFF. TIFFs, as you know, GeoTIFFs are compressed data, so this will probably expand to at least 4 or 5 times that size. Let's import, and Manifold starts the import process. Importing might take a while, a few seconds, but once it's in the project, everything's instantaneous. So let's drag and drop that into the map, and let's see what that does. And you can see what that creates. Let's zoom to fit, zoom in a little closer, and let's turn off structures. And this shows you, let's also turn off the landmarks and the labels so we can see this is what the TIFF looks like by default when you bring it in. We really need to style that ground surface by default. So let's style that using the style pane, and we're going to style that using 10 breaks with equal count, and Manifold will think, it'll compute all the statistics for us. So when we tally, it'll tally there. Okay, okay, that's the best it could do for equal count. Let's do it for equal intervals. That's better. And let's style this. And the way we're going to style this is I first want to knock out the, I'm going to change this interval so this is an interval just barely above ground level, 0.01, basically, excuse me, barely above sea level. And that way what I can do is I can double click on this and turn that into, use transparent color for this thing so that everything that's sea level is going to be knocked out. Everything below sea level is going to be knocked out. That's not quite right. You know what I probably should have done? What I want to do is I want to use not interpolate, but I want to use closest lower value. So anything below 0.1 is going to get knocked out. There, that's better. And this is all black color, so let's change those black colors to something sensible. For this one, I'm going to use a kind of a lotus pond dark green. Does that sound about right? Let's use moss green. And for this, I'm going to use a kind of a beige color for the beginning and end. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, Shift Control click there, and then here I'm going to choose Interpolate to interpolate the color ranges between those. And now I'm going to update style. And that will color this all by style. And here in the options, I'm going to turn on hill shading to update style. And let's see what that does. And you can see that that's a hill shading effect, which is, excuse me, semi-okay. But frankly, I like the one that I used here in Esri Venice better. If I drag and drop that ground surface into here, you can see that's kind of a nicer look to it. And if we look at how that one is styled, we can see it uses this kind of styling. So, good question. How do we copy the styling from this surface and apply to the Esri ground surface? Well, that's really easy to do. First, let me get rid of this, delete this from the map. And then here in the project pane, what I'll do is I'll right-click on this ground surface. Style is just a bunch of properties. In particular, it's a style pixel property. And as you can see, that's what a style looks like. It's basically it's kind of JSON style look to it. So I'm going to copy that, click Cancel, and then here in my Venice ground surface, which is this guy right here. Let's right click on that. I'm off screen. I'm going to choose properties. And here what I'll do is I will paste what I just copied into that. Click OK. And like magic, I've just duplicated the styling. In fact, what's cool about this is I copied the style property from this Venice ground surface raster, which is in that Esri Venice data set. That's not even in this project. It's in a remote project that we've linked in. And I've copied that styling and I've pasted it into the styling for this Venice ground surface layer. So you can do all kinds of cool stuff like that. Let's while we're at it, let's drag and drop the 1 meter Venice 1 meter layer into this display here, and I'll put that right above the ground surface. Oops, right above the ground surface. And there you can see what the 1 meter computation. This is the 1 meter flood stage, which shows, if you look at the styling, dark blue for when it's high water, half a meter above. Those are all the places going to get flooded. 1 meter there, this color here for 1.5 meter, and that color there for 2 meters. So parts of Venice don't get flooded unless it's pretty high water, like 2 meters, which is above, more than 6 feet above flood stage. Whereas some parts of Venice get flooded right away, and that's when you see all these famous pictures of all the various plazas and stuff, like here, the Piazza San Marco, which gets most of which gets flooded right away as soon as the water gets a little bit high, and you see all the tourists walking along in their rubber boots and along the wooden walkways that they set up to keep tourism running. All right, let's turn that one off, and we'll leave the ground surface plugged in. So far, so good. We've got a lot done. What more do we want to do? We've created labels, so I've shown you how to do that. Let's say we don't want to use canals, Esri canals, but we want to create our own canals. And what we want to do is, this is kind of like an extra credit deal. We are going to create canals for the canals of Venice, and we're going to do that by importing stuff from a PBF file, the original PBF file from OpenStreetMap data, and then we're going to, from that PBF file, we're just going to clip out the canal lines that we want to use. So let's start by importing the data. Let's import the PBF file, and that's right here. I've downloaded a shapefile extraction from OpenStreetMap, and what we want to use is the waterways, which is right here. Here are the waterways, and this is the shapefile extraction for waterways. So I'm going to click import, and PBF is a really slow format. It's an unbelievably complicated, slow format, so it takes a while to import, as you can see. And let's turn off structures, and right above here, let's drag and drop OSM waterways. And if we zoom to fit here, I'm going to control click on the tab to zoom to fit that data set. You can see these are all the waterways for all of the Nord-Est region of Italy. And if I look at the component pane, you can see that's about 83,000 polylines, some of which are very long polylines. They're pretty extensive waterways. And let's right click and drag to zoom in here towards Venice. And you can see what we're dealing with here in terms of waterways. We just want to get these waterways right around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control click and drag to zoom into about this part of Venice. So those are just those waterways there that I've selected with the control click and drag. And now what I want to do is I want to invert. If I zoom back out here, you can see I've selected just a relatively few lines out of those. I'm going to click Edit, select Inverse. So I've just selected all the waterways in that PBF set which are not around Venice. Then I'm going to click Edit, Delete. Delete selected records? Sure, let's delete selected records. And like magic, Manifold deletes all of them. Now I can come back here towards Venice. And if I want to, let's rename this really quick using rename related. Let's call this my OSM canals. And it automatically renames both the drawing and the table and other related things, which makes this easier to work with. And instead of using an incredibly long name, now we have a simpler name. If I double click open the table, I can see that not all the lines in there have a name. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to select all the ones that are null and delete those. So for that I'll use the select pane, and let's select null values that are in the name field. And you can see Manifold gives you a preview of what it's about to do, so you can say, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Click Replace Selection. Now here, and you can see those are all the ones that have null values are lit up in red. And either in the table or either in the map, I can just click Edit, Delete selected records. OK. And now I've reduced that map to only those lines that have names to them. And since I just want canals pretty much only within Venice, let's Control, click, and drag to select everything that intersects those. And let's just delete some of these guys to make the presentation look somewhat more like the canals that we pulled in from Esri. And I'm just Control, clicking, and dragging various points, and all that looks it looks pretty good. Let's see what happens when we do that. All right, let's get rid of those there too, and let's get rid of this one here, and let's get rid of that one there. I'll draw that carefully. And you can see I can zoom in here to do various things. So those that I've selected I don't want. So let's Edit, Delete selected records. And now we've kind of reduced that down to a set of canals. And let's do this one here too. I don't like that one. Edit, Delete. And here's a kind of this doesn't look pretty. Let's see what's going on there. I'll zoom in here. All right, I don't like these kind of border things here, so let's I'll Control click that to delete it. Edit, Delete. And this is a pretty typical process that we'd use to clean up. Right click to zoom box, and this one also has kind of like a border around it. I don't know why. That's kind of OSM for you. Let's get rid of that. And that actually gives us a kind of a nice look to it. And we've cleaned up all the ones where they're kind of doubled up lines. And we're left with the actual canal. So if I want, I can right-click zoom box, and let's see what some of these canals are. We can alt-click to call up the attribute values in the record plane. That's the Rio de San Jose. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I don't speak Italian at all to save my life. There's a Rio de San Zulian. That's the canal ground, with the Grand Canal. And there we go. Let's style that using the style pane, and we'll style it using, let's use a nice blue color. And let's make those about 1.5 point thick. Turn on OSM structures, turn on the wiki landmarks, turn on the wiki landmarks labels. And there we have created a nice cool new map. Last but not least, everybody wants to know, well, how do you create maps? That's really easy to do in Manifold. All you do is you here right click and choose File, Create in the project pane, or you just up here you choose File, Create, New Map. And let's choose what we want to do. By default, the base layer is any one of the image server favorites layers that we have. So for example, we use Bing Satellites, Bing Street Map. It remembers the last one you used, and the last one I used is Google Map Satellite. So we're going to create a map using the Google Map Satellite as the base layer. And what I will use is, for layers, I will use the Esri ground surface and the OSM structures and my OSM canals. Those are the three layers I'm going to have. I create map, and it creates a new map called Map 2. Double click that open, and there we go. That's our map using Google Maps Satellite. If I want to make that spiffy and black, I have the Canvas World Dark Gray base layer here that I copied and pasted earlier. I can drag and drop that layer's image right there. And that's the same map using the Canvas World Dark Gray base layer. Let's turn off the Venice ground surface. So make the structure stand, double click that just to turn it off, and that layer turn it off, and that makes the structures stand out in their full polychrome beauty. And if I want to pan and zoom without the Google Map layer, filling in and filling out, I can just, I can double click that layer off as well. So there we've created a nice new map using Canvas World Dark Gray base, with an option if we want to use the Google Maps layer. For example, if we want to take a look at what's an interesting thing to, here's the San Giorgio church. There it is right there. I can turn off structures to see it better. And remember everything that we did earlier in the prior example. Hey, this is a pretty cool maze. I didn't even know that was there. Who'd have known? Who'd have thought that there was a maze in Venice? Let's save that as a location. That's a really cool location. Save current location. We'll call that oops, double clicked instead of just clicking. Venice maze. And I'll drag and drop that and put that into the locations folder that I created here earlier. So now we can zoom around to all these locations. Let's go to Central Park, New York, and the San Marco Bridge. Actually, the San Marco Basilica. And here's Venice overall. And here's the maze. Now, amazing. I really didn't know that maze was there in Venice. And I've been to Venice a fair amount over the years. And pretty wild. Next time, got to visit. So all the cool things that you learn when you do Manifold videos or play around with Manifold. And here's one of them. One last thing. We've seen how we can open a data source like this Esri Venice data source, which is just a Manifold project that's been linked into our current project. And we copied from here, say the canals drawing, and pasted it into our project. We can also go the other way. For example, we've just created my OSM canals here. I can click that to highlight and control click the table to highlight the table as well. Here I'll click copy. And now what I can do is I can open Esri Venice and right click here and choose paste. And what that's going to do is that's going to paste a copy of the my OSM canals drawing that I created. Here it is right here. Into this other project. And when we save our project now, I'll click Save. Notice that it has a little asterisk here which tells us that this hasn't been saved. When I save this project, the Venice Add Data project, that also saves any changes made to any nested Manifold projects as well. So this idea of taking data from a project that we've created and then saving it as Esri Venice and setting it into a different project is a very, very popular thing. For example, we can create a data source here, which is a data source that's a connection to Postgres server. That's a wonderful way to load up PostGIS. What we can do is we can copy something we've created here, like my OSM canals or a big shapefile that we've imported into Manifold, copy that drawing and table, paste it into the Postgres or Oracle or whatever database server, and Manifold will automatically create that data inside the database server, inside the database for us. And well, what the heck? Let's do one last thing as well. Let's export my OSM canals, because we might want to export this as a shapefile for somebody who wants to use it. You can see the various different formats, for example, a GPackage and all those other sorts of things. For GPackage, of course, you must make sure that you've installed the SQLite drivers, because that requires a third-party software, SQLite. But you can use all these different formats. Let's use shapefiles. And we'll export my OSM canals as a shapefile. Click Export, and it's done. That'll automatically do that. Now, Manifold drawings can contain a mixture of points, lines, and areas, whereas shapefiles can only contain points or polygons or lines. If a drawing like this canals drawing or any other contains a mixture of object types, Manifold will automatically split them up into 3 different sets of shapefiles, so that you have a set of one shapefile with the points, one shapefile with the lines, one shapefile with the polygons. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. In the next video, I think we're going to learn about, well, we'll figure something out. We'll work with style or something like that, but we'll continue on this set of tutorials. We've learned all the different ways that you can import data into Manifold. There are actually a few more, but we'll leave those for more advanced videos. This will get you off to a good start. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.